Let me ask you something. Does your team talk all the time, but still miss deadlines, misunderstand each other, or feel frustrated? You sit in meetings thinking, we just talked about this last week. Or you send a message and later you realize 3 people walked away with 3 different interpretations. If that sounds familiar, the problem probably isn't effort. It's communication design. Today, I'm going to talk about why most teams communicate constantly, but they still struggle, and what research tells us actually makes team communication more effective. Most leaders believe this. If we communicate more, things will improve. So when problems show up, we add meetings, we increase check-ins, we send long emails, we repeat the message again and again and again and again. But here's the truth. More communication does not automatically create more clarity. In many cases, it creates more noise. People receive more information, but they process less of it. And over time, communication becomes something that teams endure instead of something that helps them with their work. So what does the research say? Well, research from MIT's Human Dynamics Laboratory uncovered something fascinating. They studied teams across industries, and they found that performance had very little to do with individual intelligence or expertise. What mattered most were communication patterns. High-performing teams showed 5 consistent characteristics. First, participation was balanced. No one voice dominated. Second, communication happened frequently, but in short, meaningful exchanges. Third, teams used strong engagement cues like tone of voice, facial expressions, body language, all of those, even in virtual environments. Fourth, information flowed across the team, not through silos. And finally, strong teams communicated actively outside the team with stakeholders. The insight here is powerful. Communication isn't just something leaders do, it's a system that shapes how people think, decide, and collaborate. So this communication stuff hits middle managers first. If you're a middle manager or a team lead, you are often caught in the middle. Haha. You are translating strategy from above, you are managing expectations from the side, and you're supporting the people below all at the same time. When communication breaks down, you feel it first. You're the one repeating messages. You're the one clarifying confusion. You're the one absorbing frustration from every direction. That's exhausting. And it's usually not because you're doing something wrong. It's because most organizations expect middle managers to carry communication without ever designing the communication system it flows through. When communication is unclear, leaders compensate with more effort. But when communication is intentional, you'll gain leverage. So, there's a difference between transactional versus relational communication. Most workplaces, most communication in the workplace is what we'd call transactional. These are things like status updates, deadlines, deliverables, and problem-solving conversations. Transactional communication is necessary. It keeps the work moving forward, but it does not build trust. That requires something called relational communication, conversations that help people understand one another better. Relational communication includes things like checking assumptions, exploring different perspectives, naming tensions early, repairing misunderstandings. When teams rely only on transactional communication, predictable problems emerge. Feedback starts to feel personal. Conflict goes underground. Collaboration turns into compliance. And psychological safety slowly erodes. Strong teams intentionally balance both kinds of communication. They talk about work and how they're working together. Now, there are some conversations that teams avoid altogether. Research by Clutterbuck and Meggans highlights that effective teams don't rely on just one kind of conversation. These teams engage in many types, including reflective conversations, where they're asking things like, what are we learning from all of this? Developmental conversations that ask, how are we growing together? Strategic conversations that ask, where are we heading with all of this? And repair conversations about what needs to be addressed most on the team. Many teams default almost entirely to problem solving, but when every conversation is about fixing something, teams lose the space to think, to learn, and to align together. High-performing teams vary the amount of conversation based on the moment. That kind of flexibility is a sign of mature leadership, not inefficiency. There's another type of communication that leaders often overlook, and that is communication beyond the team, outside the teams. Teams don't succeed in isolation. Research by Deborah Ancona reminds us that effective teams manage boundaries intentionally. They stay connected to stakeholders, customers, and partners through creating roles on the team like scout, ambassador, and coordinator. When external communication weakens, internal frustration increases. What looks like a team problem is often a stakeholder communication problem. Strong internal communication is reinforced, not replaced, by strong external communication. So if your team is struggling, it's rarely because people don't care. It's usually because the system of communication is working against them. Effective communication isn't about being a better speaker. It's about being a better designer of conversations. If you want support to strengthen how your team communicates internally and externally, visit my website. The link is in the description below, Thanks for watching.